I already turned him off.
Well, you can.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started. And Jim told me where you are in the book Till There Is No Remedy.
Hey, Joey.
Yeah, it's not me.
We're going to class, okay.
The Waldron series is really profitable. So when Joe told me where you are in the book, I looked at it and got an idea about how to cover the material a little bit differently than I've done before. And, the Bible teaches us a lot by character studies, just telling us about the lives of individuals. And in the study of Genesis, we go through the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then Joseph, and we see how they lived their lives. We study Moses in his times. We start to study the kings, Saul, David, and Solomon. But I have never just studied the life of Jeroboam. And I think it might make sense for us to do this. And so this is going to start around 1 Kings chapter 11 and go on through 1 Kings chapter 14. I believe as you're working through your book, you're about in this place. Mm-hmm. And it's also going to reach over briefly into 2 Chronicles. Mm-hmm. For 2 Chronicles has some things to tell us that are not in Kings. And so I want to look at this with you and see the life of this very important individual in the history of Israel. And maybe take a fresh look at him, a look that you haven't seen before. So we're going to look at the life of Jeroboam. And we're going to start in 1 Kings chapter 11 and verse 28. The first reference we have to Jeroboam by name is in 1 Kings 11 and verse 28. But it's not the first reference to him. The first reference to Jeroboam was not by name. It was by role that he was going to play. And that's back in 1 Kings chapter 11 and verse 11. In chapter 11 and verse 11, God is explaining to Solomon what's going to happen in his kingdom. 1 Kings 11:11. Therefore, the Lord said to Solomon, since this has been your practice, and you have not kept your covenant and my statutes that I have commanded you, I will surely tear the kingdom from you and will give it to your servant. Okay, that's a reference to Jeroboam. He would be the one to whom the kingdom would be torn and given. But he isn't mentioned by name until here in verse 28. So the things that we see about Jeroboam, now that he's named, it mentions his father, Nabat. And that doesn't mean anything to us. We don't find that anywhere. It's just okay. Thanks for that. Jeroboam, the son of Nabat. Don't get anything. But we do get something about his character here. It says, the man Jeroboam, this is 1 Kings 11:28, was very able, and when Solomon saw that the young man was industrious, he gave him charge over all the forced labor of the house of Joseph. We're a little troubled that Solomon's got as much forced labor as he does. And that he's taken his brothers and he's seemingly enslaved them. But Jeroboam was given charge over a portion of this forced labor for two reasons. He had ability, skills, if you will, aptitude, and he was industrious. And so, as parents, don't we kind of hope we find that mix in our children? that they're able and that they're industrious? And don't we expect good things to happen as a result of that? And it seems like this gets Jeroboam started down a good road. He's well, but I didn't mean to make some sort of play on words, but it happened while he was going down a good road that the next thing happened here, that he's informed by a crazy prophet named Ahijah, who's got a perfectly good cloak and tears it into 12 pieces and says, here, take 10 of those. That's what's going to happen to you. You're going to get 10 tribes of the kingdom of Israel. He's told that that's going to happen. He's told that he's going to succeed Solomon as king over most of the people of Israel. This is huge. I remember in the movie Truman, about Harry S. Truman, the life of Harry S. Truman, when FDR died and they swore him in as president, he said, folks, I don't know if you've ever been in the barn and had a load of hay fall on you. He says, but that's how I feel right now. It just, how do you qualify? How do you prepare in your life for being told now you're going to be the next king? But that's what happened to Jeroboam. And this wasn't some man doing this. This was God speaking through a prophet. You've been chosen as the next king. And maybe you think that's because you've been a great worker and you've got a lot of ability. You've been industrious. Who knows what God's rationale was, but he said, here's 12 pieces, you take 10. That's what's going to happen with the tribes of Israel. And so he's foretold he's going to be Solomon's successor. By the way, notice in 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 11, Solomon had been told this was going to happen. Now in verses 29 through 38, Jeroboam's told this is going to happen long before Rehoboam's folly of making that bad choice and going with the younger counselors. So this has been in the works. God was doing this long before it happened. And we can say Rehoboam's folly was the reason for the split in the kingdom, but actually it had been decided beforehand because of Solomon's terrible performance. I don't know if you talked about this. When you were studying the Kings, did you look back at Deuteronomy chapter 17 and what it says about kings?
I discussed it, not sure much of the point I made out of it about what the king would be like.
Let's go back there real quick, if you will. Deuteronomy chapter 17. It's amazing. This is written hundreds of years before the first king of Israel. But in Deuteronomy chapter 17, God knows they're going to ask for a king. In verse 14, he says, when you come into the land that the Lord God is giving you, and you possess it and dwell in it, and then say, I will set a king over me, like all the nations that are around me, you may indeed set a king over you, whom the Lord your God will choose. One from among your brothers you shall set as a king over you. You may not put a foreigner over you, who is not your brother. Only, and here are the prohibitions, he must not acquire many horses for himself, or cause the people to return to Egypt in order to acquire many horses, since the Lord has said to you, you shall never return that way again. And he shall not acquire many wives for himself, lest his heart turn away, nor shall he acquire for himself excessive silver and gold. Solomon did every one of those. Every one of those prohibitions, he did every one. He missed the mark in a big way. What he was supposed to do in verse 18, when he, any king, sits on the throne of his kingdom, he shall write for himself in a book a copy of this law, approved by the Levitical priests, and it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God by keeping all the words of this law and these statutes and doing them, that his heart may not be lifted up above his brothers, that he may not turn aside to the commandment, either to the right hand or to the left, so that he may continue long in his kingdom, he and his children in Israel. It's because Solomon failed so miserably at this that God said somebody else is going to get it, and then told Jeroboam he was going to be that guy. So, 1 Kings chapter.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may. I forgot. This is a Bible class. I don't have to just keep talking. You
No,
can
that's
talk.
okay. So my question is, he asked God for wisdom, Solomon did, and he
Yes.
gave him wisdom and
Yes.
wealth.
It's right.
So where he went wrong, what you mean is just like when he had fallen away, because the wealth wasn't wrong, or was it still?
There's nothing wrong with the wealth or the wisdom that he was given.
Okay.
To close that loop on Solomon and see where he went wrong, we just back up a little bit in 1 Kings chapter 11. That's where it tells us. Let's do that. Let's go back to 1 Kings chapter 11, the first part.
So even though in here it says they shouldn't own, like have wealth, like gold and all that, but it was okay
Well,
for Solomon.
He did go excessive on that.
Okay.
Yeah, he
Okay.
did. He went way overboard
Okay.
on what he should have had. But the sins of Solomon are specifically listed in 1 Kings 11, verse 1. King Solomon loved many foreign women along with the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women from the nations concerning which the Lord had said to the people of Israel, you shall not enter into marriage with them, neither shall they with you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clung to these in love. He had 700 wives who were princesses and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For when Solomon was old, his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not wholly true to the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. So Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and did not wholly follow the Lord as David his father had done. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, for Molech, the abomination of the Ammonites, on the mountain east of Jerusalem. And so he did for all his foreign wives, who made offerings and sacrifice to their gods. So these things that we attribute to Solomon's hand as a young man, Proverbs, perhaps Ecclesiastes, and the wonderful gift he was given of all the wisdom, those were not enough to keep him on the straight and narrow. When he decided he was going to disobey God, off he went. And we don't see Solomon listed in the Hall of Faith in Hebrews chapter 11. He's not there because he fell way off. Go ahead, Joe.
I guess the puzzling thing is, I believe I got a beat on it, but I'm not sure I can explain it always, but it seems to me the reason that God has kept on with these kings is the fact that the promise of Jesus Christ coming. Otherwise, people always ask, well, why didn't God stop him? And why didn't God just stop Solomon in his tracks? What do you think about that?
He doesn't stop any of us in our tracks. He gives us all free will. I mean,
Good point.
we have the ability to do what we will, and it drastically affects our future. His will is going to be done. The best summary of that is in the book of Esther, when Mordecai goes and explains to her, if you don't rise up at this point, salvation is going to come from somewhere else. God's will is still going to be done, but it's going to affect your household, whether you rise up or not. Don't think that you're going to be safe if you just keep your head down in the palace. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, Mike.
So do you think, Solomon, I mean, we've read a lot about him, studied a lot of it. Do you think Solomon maybe, I don't know what words to really pick for this, didn't really have that heart of a servant that Jesus talked about as a leader? Because that's what Jesus talked about. If you're going to be a leader, you need to be willing to serve first. And I wonder sometimes, you get kind of the feeling that maybe Solomon wasn't quite that kind of person, because I think he did cherish that stuff. And maybe someone who was a servant would not cherish it as much as look at it as something for the good of the kingdom or the good of God.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You're on a good track there as to the motive for Solomon doing this. And I really think we might learn something from the study of Jeroboam that's going to tell us a little bit about Solomon's error, because Jeroboam's going to go the same way. And maybe for the same reason. Let's see. Because it's a sad story. This is a great beginning. So far, I think he's an able person. He's an industrious person. He's been given responsibility. He's done well with it. Now he's told he's going to be king. And wow, this is a great start. Of course, Solomon doesn't like this, as Saul didn't like the fact that David was going to succeed him, and he had been chosen. And Saul was just evil to David, trying to squash him out. Solomon sought, therefore, to kill Jeroboam. So he's on the most wanted list just for being chosen to succeed him. He gets out of this, he avoids being killed the way you do. You get out of Dodge, you get beyond the king's grasp. And so Moses went to Moab, or Midian, he went to the land of Midian, and to avoid Pharaoh's wrath. And Jeroboam goes to Egypt to avoid Solomon's wrath. And he stays there until, it says, the death of Solomon. So there's a dynamic here. All the last days of Solomon, Jeroboam's persona non grata, and he's out of town. But in 1 Kings chapter 12, things change. Solomon passes away at the close of chapter 11, and Rehoboam, his son, reigned in his place. Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had come to Shechem to make him king. So that was going to be the place that this was going to happen. He's going to be made king. But as soon as Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, heard it, for he was still in Egypt, where he fled from King Solomon, then Jeroboam returned from Egypt, and they sent and called him. These are the people of Israel. The people of Israel are already acting kind of on their own as a separate entity from Rehoboam. And when they need a spokesperson, they tap Jeroboam, who's just come back from Egypt. And he's the one who puts the ultimatum to Rehoboam. In verse 3, they sent and called him, and Jeroboam and all the assembly of Israel came and said to Rehoboam, your father made our yoke heavy. Now, therefore, lighten the hard service of your father and his heavy yoke on us, and we will serve you. He said to them, go away for 3 days, and then come again to me. So the people went away. Now, you know what happened, and Rehoboam went with the wrong counsel. So in verse 12, Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the third day, as the king had said, come to me on the third day. The king answered the people harshly, and forsaking the counsel that the old men had given him, he spoke to them according to the counsel of the young men, saying, my father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. My father disciplined you with whips, I will discipline you with scorpions. So the king did not listen to the people, for it was a turn of affairs brought about by the Lord, that he might fulfill his word, which the Lord spoke by Ahijah the Shilonite to Jeroboam the son of Nebat. So this is all fulfilling that prophecy that had been given earlier. But in verse 16, when all Israel saw that the king did not listen to them, the people answered the king, what portion do we have with David? We've no inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel. Look now to your own house, David. So they went to their tents. And so this is the point where the break occurs. And is it of Rehoboam? Yeah, but it's of the Lord, and the Lord said this was going to happen. So Jeroboam is Israel's spokesman at this point. And going on down to verse 20, when all Israel heard that Jeroboam had returned, they sent and called him to the assembly and made him king over all Israel. There was none that followed the house of David, but the tribe of Judah only. The tribe of Benjamin also was in there, but they never mentioned him. I don't know why. Jeroboam had been told, as a prophecy from God, he was going to be king. And now the people say, we want you to be our king. This is an amazing moment for this man. He is set. He's got responsibility for 10 tribes of the Lord's people that had been brought out of Egypt, that had been taken to Sinai, that had been consecrated to the Lord, that had been told how to worship, that had come into the promised land under the direction of Joshua, that had got their land and they've been living in there for hundreds of years. 10 of those tribes now are under his responsibility. But I want you to see, dear ones, in this giving of the prophecy was a duty expressed as well. And I think Jeroboam missed this, or he just didn't care. When he was told by God, by Ahijah, that he was going to be the king, this is what is said in verses 38 and 39 of 1 Kings 11. And if you will listen to all that I command you, and will walk in my ways, and do what is right in my eyes by keeping my statutes and my commandments, as David my servant did, I will be with you and will build you a sure house, as I built for David, and I will give Israel to you. And I will afflict the offspring of David because of this, but not forever. He was told, even though he was getting a portion of the kingdom instead of Solomon, he didn't have different rules from Solomon. He didn't have any different rules than any of the other king, and he had the same promise of blessings for obedience that the others had had. He had a duty, Jeroboam did, to Jehovah. And in 1 Kings chapter 12, seemingly early on in his reign, he completely blows it. He completely goes off the deep end. And he starts to sin, and he sins in a bold way, and he sins continually. He sins in such a bold way that the northern kingdom, the 10 tribes, never recovered from it. They never had a single king that was pleasing to the Lord. Jeroboam had an opportunity to be set up and to have a dynasty, to have successors from his own loins, to take the reins. What does he do? Look and see his rationale, if you will. In verse 25, 1 Kings 12:25, Jeroboam built Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim and lived there. He went out from there and built Penuel, and Jeroboam said in his heart, now the kingdom will turn back to the house of David. I'm going to lose them. I'm going to lose this kingdom. They're going to go back up to Jerusalem. They're going to realize what they did wrong, or was wrong. They're going to want, Rehoboam to be their king. I'm not going to have power anymore. We got to do something. And so what he does is he sets up the first state-run religion, a religion of convenience, if you will. Do you see in verse 27, he says, if this people go up to offer sacrifices in the temple of the Lord at Jerusalem, then the heart of this people will turn again to their Lord. So to Rehoboam, king of Judah, they'll kill me and return to Rehoboam, king of Judah. So the king took counsel. Satan's trusted method is when we decide to get stupid, have somebody right there and say, that's a great idea. And so here he does. He gets stupid and he says, you know what? We'll make some golden calves. And they say, that's a great idea. You make those golden, make 2 of them. And so he does. And he set one in Bethel and he put the other in Dan. This thing became a sin for the people went as far as Dan to be before the one. And he goes on. He made temples in the high places. He appointed priests from among all the people, not who were not of the Levites. Jeroboam appointed a feast on the 15th day of the 8th month, like the feast that was in Judah. He offered sacrifices on the altar. So he did in Bethel, sacrificing to the calves he had made. And he placed in Bethel the priests of the high places that he had made. And he went up to the altar that he had made. And do you see the recurring theme here? This is all his invention. This is what we're going to do. He's turning his back on everything he knows the Lord wants. And he's made a decision. One of the commentators said, he decided it was more important for the people to be devoted to him than to be devoted to God. Don't you think that explains it? I want them to keep following me. And we're going to do whatever it takes to have them keep following. And this is where it all falls apart. You know?
So I'm gonna make these things and I'm gonna pretend to like worship them and sacrifice to them, knowing full well. I made them. I made them.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
It is.
About,
It's amazing that he
Like
did
a-
this.
yeah, it's a sham. The whole thing is a sham. Because
Right.
He made them and then he's pretending to like worship it.
And that's really going to come out. I mean, the sham religion that this is going to be, he's going to expose it himself here in a little bit. We'll see. It's a very telling incident that happens. Some folks, though, a lot of the commentators say they were using those calves to worship Jehovah. Okay, well, even if I gave you that, it still doesn't get you anything. I mean, you're still not supposed to do that. So, I mean, what exactly was he making the exact same mistake that the children of Israel made when they came out of Egypt? It looks like it. Use a familiar idol that had been around before. It hadn't ended well with the other one, but he's going to try it again. Even if you say they were using these idols, you can see the language here. Behold your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. I don't know. It sounds like idolatry to me. I think that's probably the best way to look at it. It's idolatry. Now, that's his sin.
I have a question.
Yeah, jump.
And maybe you'll get to it though, but as I read in this, I didn't put my finger on it where, but he says something about, I'll make you, the God says, I'll make you do what I say and I'll make it as the kingdom of David.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a little puzzling because, it's going to come out of Shiloh and stuff like that. So do you think that has any significance in basis of where the kingdom was going to go from there? You think he was going to make Jeroboam over all?
Well, no. David's house, because of the promise given in 2 Samuel chapter 7, he was going to have the Lord come through his house. But the same way David was set up as king, Jeroboam could have been set up as king. It would have been kind of a parallel kingdom. It would have been a larger kingdom.
Okay.
But he had the ability to be faithful as David was and chose not to. That's something that strikes me. He had a wonderful beginning, almost as wonderful as Solomon's. I mean, Solomon was born into this, and was given the choice by God. Maybe more blessed, he had the wisdom also, but Rehoboam had it pretty good and could have done well.
I can't hear everything that's being said, but I can't help but think about what he says in the first and 26. Jeroboam said in his heart, "Now the kingdom will return to the house of David.
That was his fear.
If this people go up to offer sacrifices in the house of the Lord in Jerusalem, then the heart of this people will return to their Lord,
Right.
even to Rehoboam the king of Judah, and they will kill me and return to Rehoboam king of Judah." So I see fear there.
That's right.
And also, what's the word I'm looking for? What happens when you get older?
Join the crowd.
Fear and also, he was thinking of himself,
That's right.
pride, or
There's a test I like to apply to different situations. Is it a fear response or a faith response? Okay. Fear or faith. And that works pretty well. But you know what? Fear of God is a proper response. It's not really an opposite of faith. So to tighten that up a little bit, is it a fear of man response or a fear of God response? Maybe that's a better way to say it. Who are you afraid of here? And he didn't seem to be afraid of God at all. He was afraid of men. They're going to take me. They're going to kill me. They're going to go back and worship the other guy. And I'm going to be nothing or dead. And so instead of saying, as you can almost hear David saying, God's will, whatever God wants to use me for, that's fine. We'll let him decide. No, Jeroboam's going to take the reins in his own hands. He's going to do it his own way. And he does. He sets up a completely different religion that takes 10 tribes way far away from God. So far so that, we talk about the Babylonian captivity and the remnant returning. What we see in the northern kingdom is a great exodus of godly people out of Israel in the early days when they see what Jeroboam's doing, and then really destruction of the kingdom after that. What they do to worship after the descendants of Jeroboam, if you will, leads to what in John chapter 4 is the Samaritan woman. He tells her, "You worship you know not what." You guys are so far off. He said, "You don't even know what you're worshiping. We worship the true and the living God the right way." So that's where this starts. It starts with Jeroboam taking him off the wrong way. Now, in chapter 14, this is what's telling about the sham of the religion. Look what happens in verse 1 of chapter 14. Oh, chapter 13, I skipped. You probably know that. That's where the man of God goes and prophesies. It's a great story in and of itself, but just know that happened. He was prophesied against Jeroboam. This would not stand. There's going to be a king, Josiah. He's going to burn men's bones on this altar. This altar is going to break apart. All those things happen. Prophesy to denounce what Jeroboam was doing. But look in chapter 14. Abijah, the son of Jeroboam, fell sick. What does he do? He says to his wife, "Arise and disguise yourself, that it be not known that you're the wife of Jeroboam, and go to Shiloh. Behold, Ahijah the prophet's there, who said of me that I should be king over this people. Take with you 10 loaves, some cakes, and a jar of honey, and go to him. He'll tell you what shall happen to the child." The ox is in the ditch. He's in trouble. Does he go to any of the calf? Go talk to that golden calf and see what's going to happen. No. Go back to the prophet of God who really knows what's going on, the true God. You're going to have to dress up because he's not going to like you, but pretend you're somebody else and go, "Oh, what a great idea." It doesn't work at all. The prophet's blind and he knows she's coming because God tells her. She pretended to be another woman. Verse 5, Ahijah heard the sound of her feet. She came in at the door. He said, "Come in, wife of Jeroboam. Why do you pretend to be another? For I'm charged with unbearable news for you." And you can kind of take Jeroboam's wife out of the picture here because she's going to relate this to Jeroboam when she gets home. "Because I exalted you from among the people and made you leader over my people Israel and tore the kingdom away from the house of David and gave it to you. And yet you have not been like my servant David, who kept my commandments and followed me with all his heart, doing only that which was right in my eyes. But you have done evil above all who were before you, and have gone and made for yourselves other gods, metal images, provoking me to anger, and have cast me behind your back. Therefore, behold, I will bring harm upon the house of Jeroboam, and will cut off from Jeroboam every male, both bond and free, in Israel, and will burn up the house of Jeroboam, as a man burns up dung until it's all gone. Anyone belonging to Jeroboam who dies in the city, the dogs shall eat. And anyone who dies in the open country, the birds of the heavens shall eat. For the Lord has spoken. Arise, therefore, go to your house. When your feet enter the city, the child shall die. And all Israel shall mourn for him and bury him. For he only of Jeroboam shall come to the grave, because in him there is found something pleasing to the Lord, the God of Israel, in the house of Jeroboam. Moreover, the Lord will raise up for himself a king over Israel who shall cut off the house of Jeroboam today. And henceforth, the Lord will strike Israel as a reed is shaken in the water, and root up Israel out of this good land that he gave to their fathers, and scattered them beyond the Euphrates, because they made their Asherim provoking the Lord to anger, and he will give Israel up because of the sins of Jeroboam, which he sinned and made Israel to sin. Jeroboam didn't just do this to himself. Jeroboam sank the whole northern kingdom. He delivered a blow of idolatry that they did not recover from. And he didn't have to do it. It's absolutely amazing, I think, what he did. 2 Chronicles chapter 13 is where we read about an interesting defeat. How long do I have this morning?
As long as you want.
That's true, but I gotta eat. No, I'm kidding. I'm not really kidding. All right, 2 Chronicles chapter 13. 2 Chronicles chapter 13. When I can't speak over my stomach growl, I'm gonna stop.
We usually go till about 12:30, basically.
All right. 2 Chronicles chapter 13. In the 18th year of King Jeroboam, Abijah began to reign over Judah. Abijah was the one who succeeded after Rehoboam. He reigned for 3 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Micaiah, the daughter of Uriel of Gibeon. Now, there was war between Abijah and Jeroboam. Abijah went out to battle having an army of valiant men of war, 400,000. Okay, get that number, 400,000 men. Jeroboam drew up his line of battle against him with 800,000 mighty warriors. Yeah, Jeroboam has twice as many men as Abijah. What do you think is going to happen? Well, Abijah stood up on Mount Zemaraim, that is on the hill country of Ephraim, and said, "Hear me, O Jeroboam and all Israel. Ought you not to know that the Lord God of Israel gave the kingship over Israel to David forever and his sons by a covenant of salt?" And I was going to look that up, covenant of salt. You don't hear that too often, but in a very formal way. Yet Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, a servant of Solomon, the son of David, rose up and rebelled against his Lord, and certain worthless scoundrels gathered about him and defied Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, when Rehoboam was young and irresolute and could not withstand them. Okay, that's one way to look at it, but that's how he tells it. And now you think to withstand the kingdom of the Lord in the hands of the sons of David because you're a great multitude and have with you the golden calves that Jeroboam made for you for gods? Have you not driven out the priests of the Lord, the sons of Aaron and the Levites, and made priests for yourselves like the peoples of other lands? Whoever comes for ordination with a young bull or 7 rams becomes a priest of what are not gods. But as for us, the Lord is our God. We have not forsaken him. We have priests ministering to the Lord who are sons of Aaron, and Levites for their service. They offer to the Lord every morning and every evening burnt offerings and incense of sweet spices, set out the showbread on the table of pure gold, care for the golden lampstands, that its lamps may burn every evening. For we keep the charge of the Lord our God. But you have forsaken him. Well, God is with us, our head, at our head. And his priests with their battle trumpets to sound the call with their battle trumpets to sound the call to battle against you. O sons of Israel, do not fight against the Lord, the God of your fathers, for you cannot succeed. And he doesn't. He doesn't succeed. In verse 17, Abijah and the people struck them with great force, so that there fell slain of Israel 500,000 chosen men. 400,000 men defeated an army twice their size, killing over half of the army. Thus the men of Israel, in verse 18, were subdued at that time. The men of Judah prevailed because they relied on the Lord, the God of their fathers. And Abijah pursued Jeroboam, took cities from him, Bethel with its villages, and Jeshanah with its villages, and Ephraim with its villages. Jeroboam did not recover his power in the days of Abijah. And the Lord struck him down, and he died. And that was it. He'd been told things were going to fall apart, and they did fall apart. He was defeated, and then he died. And his legacy? Look at 1 Kings chapter 15. go ahead, and then the lesson's going to be yours. 1 Kings chapter 15, verses 29. Oh, wait. There's no 29 and 30. Oh, wait, yeah, there is. I'm in Chronicles. I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong book. 1 Kings 15, 29 and 30. As soon as he was king, he killed all the house of Jeroboam. He left the house of Jeroboam not one that breathed until he had destroyed it, according to the word of the Lord that he spoke by his servant Ahijah the Shilonite. It was for the sins of Jeroboam that he sinned, and that he made Israel to sin, and because of the anger to which he provoked the Lord, the God of Israel. It's amazing to me, dear ones, to see how well Jeroboam was set up. I don't normally focus on him. He was set up to succeed, and he totally went the wrong way for the wrong reason. Jeroboam had it all and threw it away. Jeroboam wanted the people to be devoted to himself rather than to Jehovah. Jeroboam was more afraid of the people than of Jehovah. With his terrible choice came loss. He lost his son when the wife entered the city. He lost a battle. He lost his army in that battle. He lost his kingdom. He lost his family. They were all destroyed. And he lost his life and his eternal one as well for this decision that he made. So let's learn from Jeroboam's error. Let's always desire, first and foremost, that people be devoted to God and not to me. It's not about me. It's about God and being devoted to Him. Be more afraid of Jehovah than people and what they're going to do. Fear not those who can kill the body. Fear Him who can destroy soul and body in hell. Be afraid of Him. And with these choices, dear ones, are going to come blessings. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all the stuff will be added to you. See if it's not. So, a quick look at the life of Jeroboam. A look we don't take very often, I think, right?